Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, how to hopefully make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today. We've got Circle rejecting the Ripple offer to acquire it for three to $4 or $5 billion. We're a bit unsure about the number. We saw all of those numbers, a bit of vibe valuations there. We've got also Movement Labs controversy again, as huge allegations of shady dealings and insider trading. And on the more risky side of things, Housecoin hit a $100 million market cap. And we're going to be talking about risk and what we think about it, how we're allocating at the moment, how we are looking at the market in that respect. We also got the latest on price action, crypto and NFTs as usual, plus a general discussion on a lot of interesting headlines today. The snapshot was absolutely packed with a bunch of other things which we want to touch on. So we're going to give some time to those two. Got Legendary in the co-host seat with me today. We're ready to get into it. Just a reminder, friends, nothing that we do or say or think here is financial advice. This market is really, really risky. So please proceed with caution, exercise your own judgment, and do your own research. With that out of the way, Ledge, it is Thursday. It's the 1st of May. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Jim, doing quite well. Yesterday's been fully packed with events at Token. Today is basically after the show, the same thing. We had this routine of hosting the show, getting the uploads, the clips, everything done as quickly as possible, given limitations of internet speed in hotels. And then I was doing the uploads. You were on the planning side of things, how to best navigate around the traffic jams so that we can get to the next event. And this has been live for the last couple of days, but it's been good.
Yeah, that's our division of responsibility. You just like deal with the uploads. I will deal with the logistics of how we get from each event to which event by bypassing traffic, making sure we're not running from one side of the city to the other side of the city, which is a legit thing we need to keep in mind. It's been fun. People asked us how yesterday's day went. We had an outstanding day yesterday. Absolutely sick events. Really, really great projects that we were able to speak to. We were talking a little bit, Ledge, about like different strategies of how to do events. Some people take the more relaxed approach, go with the flow, wherever is most fun, that's where you go, versus like streamlined shark attack for the people and projects that you want to chat to. How have you felt we've gone about it?
I think we said one thing, that no event hopping, no like vibe going to one event for like 30 minutes and then jumping to the next and then jumping to the next, but like rather have
no vibe attendance.
No vibe attendance, rather have a concentrated effort where you want to be. Personally, like there's a lot of partying, etc. going on, but I just have no interest in that. I'm pretty boring.
We
when it
did
comes
go to a party though. We went to a party. Shout out to our friend Shiv, who hosted Bing Bong. That was pretty nice. We still went to the party.
That is true, but we also get back to bed way before midnight and stayed for like an hour or so.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Look, we've
Just
got
older than the rest of our peers, basically, or than a good amount of our peers. Funky excluded.
Punky excluded. Okay, good stuff. Right, we want to get into all of the main stuff today. We've got more than even normal, I think, because we've got a couple of big headlines. We also want to talk about risk and allocation. And there's also just stuff in the snapshot, which is, part of the Web3 Roundup, which is super important. And I want to give a few minutes to that too. So let's just get right into it straight away. We might have to we have cut the show slightly short as well, because we've got to get on the move post show. But let's get into it as usual, starting with the price action. We've got with the majors, we're in Bitcoin up almost 1%, just under 95K at the moment. We have, let me just refresh the page to make sure that is correct. Oh no, Bitcoin's up 1%. It's up past 96 now, past 96K. We've got ETH up a couple of percent. That is at 1.8K, pushing towards 1.9. We've also got XRP, which is flat around $2.20. Got BNB flat at 600. Solana is up 3% to $152. You have on the meme coin side of things, Fartcoin's up 10% to $1.26. My Fartcoin DCA, remember I set up that strategy a couple of weeks ago. Didn't last too long. and I sold out of that for a small amount of profit. Whenever I'm trading on mobile, it's always like fast trades, but should have held some more. So that's up 10%. We'll be talking about more memes in general and how we're thinking about it in a little bit. We've got Trump's up just 1%, Doge is up 1% to 17 cents, Bonk is flat, Fartcoin, as I said, up 10, Pengu's up 6% today as well, still up 80% in the week. WIF is up 6%, SPX, Murad's coin is up 4%, Popcat's up 6%, AI16Z on the AI side up 10%. So a lot of green across the board. MOG is up 4%. One thing I would note is like those coins that are most recent, again, I think seeing the biggest moves. You had some, even when it comes to the AI stuff in the virtuals ecosystem, those things are moving a bit better because that was like, November, December, Jan, that was the most popular ecosystem. Whereas something like MOG, which was a super, super popular meme coin, maybe a year ago, moving into this mania 2, it was still very, very popular then too. But that is only up 20% on the week versus some of this AI stuff, which has really, really run. So that's just a short observation. Getting into the headlines themselves, we have Housecoin hitting 100 million market cap. There's also a bunch of other riskier, newer coins which are really, really moving. Circle rejected Ripple offer to acquire it for a few $1 billion. We'll talk about that. Movement Labs controversy again, as huge allegations of shady dealings and insider trading. We'll just like touch on those briefly. I'm not going to do a full out investigation, try to come to a conclusion today. Like, we're just not going to do that. There's too many other interesting things to talk about too. Hype and some notable price action. Hype's up 8%. It did get back to $20 before just a quick pullback underneath. That's good to see. I've been super positive on that for the last few months, actually. Virtual's up another 30% to $1.65. Some notable sales. CryptoPunk Clown selling for 57.5 ETH. So those CryptoPunks, as we noted the other day, back up to like an 80K floor or something like that, because ETH is recovering too. Ledge, anything else we need to know on the NFT side that's catching your attention?
Actually, a nice day for NFT majors. We have Pudgy Penguins up another 4%, edging closer to 12 ETH, 11 point ETH floor on that side. Bored Apes up 1%, 13.7 ETH floor on that side. The little Pudgies are moving in tune with the Pudgies, or even outperforming them slightly on the day. So we do see actually a fair amount of volume throughout the majors. And once again, I mentioned it the day before, that Genesis, the OpenSea collection, is moving up gradually. Yesterday it was up, I think, somewhere between like 7 and 8%, or even almost 10%. Now it's up another 20%. And all those green days add up to a total gain of 20% over the last 7 days and bring it to a 0.04 floor price. And again, that is off 130 ETH in 1 day volume, which is more volume, for example, in the Bored Ape collection has seen yesterday.
Interesting. Okay. Excellent bits of context there. Appreciate that. Getting into the rest of the Web3 Roundup to get up to speed. As I said, a lot of interesting news here. We had the TON Foundation announcing a $500 million tokenized bond fund, providing compliant on-chain exposure to the $2.35 billion of outstanding bonds issued by Telegram, enabling institutional and accredited investors across the TON ecosystem to access institutional grade yield products in a DeFi native format. That is really, really interesting. Huge amount of money as well. Huge amount of money. Huge Collector and Whale Dingaling announces a new token launchpad. Boop stakers, this is the way they're going to design the token, will receive 5% of the total supply of all newly graduated tokens launched on the platform. So if you stake, you are participating in the success of successful tokens. And in addition, 60% of all SOL fees from the token LPs will go to stakers as well. So this is clearly an attack on Pump Fun, where you don't there is no token, so community is not kind of participating in the upside. We've also seen a number of other token launch pads go live recently. You've got the Radium one, you've got the Bonk one. That seems to be very heavily, well, not heavily skewed, but just far more inclusive of the community in the potential upside if you want to stake the token, which obviously doesn't exist at the moment, but I guess it's going to come. So very curious there to see that. North Carolina Bitcoin reserve regulation passes the House. You had Japan's MetaPlanet launching a US subsidiary in Florida with $250 million of capital focused on BTC Treasury operations, which I think is very interesting. Tether announced a plan for a US stablecoin this year, which is very interesting. I went to the Plasma event yesterday in Dubai, and it was great to meet some of the team. They obviously have huge plans to kind of disrupt the stablecoin market in general, very much backed by Tether. In other huge news, Unit is bringing Fartcoin to Hyperliquid. Remember, we spoke about Unit a lot. Thought it's one of the biggest opportunities around on Hyperliquid. They are the team that brings Bitcoin and ETH to Hyperliquid. They earn fees the more you trade those spot assets. And now they brought Fartcoin, and they're probably going to bring other ones. I think Sol is on the roadmap as well. Just generating some volume there, I think, is one of the biggest opportunities in the space right now. More news. Infinex announced Infiniex Connect, full interface to manage apps from inside the Infinex wallet. I'm obviously an investor in Infinex. I think they're doing a good job. And this is, I would recommend having a look at that video, their launch video, where they share what it looks like. You can go into the app, and instead of then having to open Aave, instead of having to go and open another tab, you can take your funds, which are in Infinex, and just go straight into it within the same interface. Very cool design. So yeah, good to see that innovation. FIFA plan to launch its own FIFA blockchain and will mitigate its own football and will migrate its own football NFTs across to the new chain. 12 CryptoPunks will be featured in an exhibition at the Toledo Museum. And staying on the art side, Grant Young released 21 of ones, all for purchase by 24-hour auction. That auction is live now. The highest bid is for a piece called Lobby, and that is the highest bid is at 10 ETH at the moment. There's a number of multi-ETH bids out on these 21 of ones. So kind of a huge release from one of the top artists in Web3 and elsewhere, taking place right now. That's the Web3 Roundup. Ledge, I think we've got a bunch of interesting things to talk about there. But even before we get into the main headlines today, and before we get to speculating on Housecoin and meme coins and everything else, and the amount of risk we want to start taking or have started taking. So where do you want to go first, Ledge?
Quite a few things to comment on, actually. As you said, North Carolina, the BTC reserve regulation passing the House is a beautiful piece of news. We have spoken just this week about Arizona and how they have been moving beautifully to this process, and how so many other states in the US are in the lawmaking process of trying to establish a Bitcoin reserve. Yes, we had 6 rejections so far in individual states, but I feel like as soon as we will get 1, 2, maybe 3 states passing regulation to have a BTC reserve, that will create even more positive momentum. So that is something that was very, very beautiful to see. The other thing I quickly wanted to comment on as well is the Tether news, the US stablecoin. I find this very, very interesting. So Tether obviously based out of the BVI, the British Virgin Islands, with the plans to relocate to El Salvador, which they had announced at the start of the year. Don't know how far they are in this process right now. But obviously, Tether is has faced a lot of criticism in the past in the US. Tether is not compliant with the MiCAR, the markets in crypto assets regulation in the EU. It's basically what Circle and USDC are very much compliant with. And I've been wondering how they will approach regulatory things. And it's interesting to see that for the states, they're planning to launch a specific stablecoin. And I do wonder how this will integrate with basically the Tether ecosystem, because if you just look at the sheer size of USDT, of Tether, and the fact that they have like 2/3 of the total stablecoin market share with billions and billions of dollars in Tether, I wonder how this will interact with the US stablecoin and what the exchange process and connections will be between the two of those in the background.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I can't think that it must just be like, I mean, this is me completely guessing. I don't think it's going to be like a huge different brand or a different offering. Like, it will just be Tether with a US corporation, which maybe gives US people like a little bit more confidence. That would be my complete guess. I don't think they're looking to launch something that is diametrically opposed to everything else that that kind of that they've built so far, right? They want to keep building on their brand, not like necessarily create something else. Definitely got some more interesting stuff to talk on here. Want to go to Funky straight away though. Curious for your thoughts here, Funk. Welcome to the stage. What are you thinking as it relates to this kind of Tether news?
Thanks so much, guys. Yeah, just real quick, two things I want to let you know. One, they definitely have boots on the ground in El Salvador. I'm working with a team in El Salvador building a product currently, and Tether definitely has people there. They don't have an office yet, but they're already involved. They're talking to the folks in the government and everything else. Two, I brought it up once in the show very briefly before, and that was the fact that Cantor Fitzgerald, we know Howard Lutnick, of course, Secretary of Commerce, Cantor Fitzgerald has a 5% stake in Tether. So I'm not surprised to see that they would want to have something to do with the US, mainly because they're going to want to have a seat at the table as this regulatory clarity emerges through legislation with the Genius Act and the Stable Act.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I kind of, thanks for that like additional confirmation. And I guess the other thing was kind of confirmation as well with my thinking, which is, yeah, I suspect this is just like a regulatory check the box so that you can continue and expand the business in the US with, just a little bit less headache than you might have had if you just continue to be an entity that exists somewhere else. So I think that all makes sense. Ledge, was there any other bits that you wanted to go to? Otherwise, there's like some bits I think are really important.
Just one comment on FIFA with their own blockchain. Obviously, FIFA has dabbled into NFTs quite a while ago, but the timing of this is interesting to see, and I think obviously also from the part of the World Cup and the FIFA tournaments happening, but also from the perspective that we've been having this SUI related rumors of Pokemon potentially coming on chain with the NFTs, which we had touched on the show as well. Now FIFA, yes, of course they had NFTs previously, and now re-entering the mindshare and news with their own blockchain. And I wonder if 2 or 3 of those giga brands, some of the biggest brands in the world, that is, who might refocus a bit on NFTs, will help to bring back a mini NFT season and rekindle that interest, or if that just won't matter over the next couple of months.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. My interest is actually moving slightly more to the transactional side of things in the sense of the trading stuff. Like prices are moving, theses are being confirmed, I think. I wanted to just go back to Hype and share that, Hype's up 8%. It was kind of knocking on the door of $20. It went past it for a bit. So it's reclaimed 20, might have dipped just beneath now. We just had a very interesting conversation with, I don't know how you would describe them, probably one of the biggest traders, builders in the space. Not going to say who they are, because, but the thing that was very interesting about this conversation was that when I shared this kind of hyperliquid thesis not so long ago, it was very much based on, the trading fees that they're earning, how many quality people are involved in the ecosystem, and specifically this unit thesis, which I've shared on the show before. And if you don't know about unit, I have explained it before, but it's just this. It is that the team that is building the way for other assets to be traded on Hyperliquid. So they are the ones who've brought Bitcoin to Hyperliquid. They're the ones who've brought ETH to Hyperliquid. They are the ones who are bringing in the process of bringing Fartcoin to Hyperliquid. They're going to bring Sol to Hyperliquid, and as part of that deal, they get to partake in those fees that are earned. So they're going to make a truckload of money. They're going to make a truckload of money. The thesis is that they're going to have a token. Or I don't know if it's officially confirmed, but that's how these things typically work. And the research that I did into it and the way that I got there was explained back to me word for word by this person we had this conversation with earlier today. So I thought it was that was just very fun to know that I'm not out on an island myself, although sometimes the best trades and the best ways to allocate is when you are out on an island, because it means you're before everyone else and you are kind of early to a position, but it just means that I got a little bit of confirmation from some theses that I had already kind of constructed and actually shared with people here. Ledge, did you have any reflections on the whole Hyperliquid Unit conversation? They're now bringing Fartcoin, the people's coin. I think the founder called it in a tweet earlier today. Did you have any reflections on that Hyperliquid Unit conversation?
I think not a lot of people are aware of what is going on with Unit. Just look at the socials. They have, what, 12K followers. But if you look at one metric that I find interesting, because as you said, the main thing that they did bring to Hyperliquid is, amongst other currencies, BTC is spot Bitcoin. And if you compare that Bitcoin spot volume among decentralized exchanges, you will see that actually Aerodrome is the leading one with roughly 160 mil in 24-hour volume, then followed by Uniswap with 150 mil. And then you actually have Hyperliquid with almost 50 mil. So yes, they are a 3x away from flipping Uniswap. But also on the flip side, this is a very, very recent protocol. Not a lot of people are, again, aware of that. And this is happening exclusively on Hyperliquid, while Uniswap exists on so many chains. And they are, if you look at it from this perspective, only a 3x away, only 100 mil in 24-hour trading volume for becoming the number one place, the number one decentralized exchange to trade spot BTC by volume.
Yeah, the thesis I've seen is that this is going to house all finance. I believe, although I need to double check, that they want to bring stocks as well. If they stuck stocks into this thing is going to just completely explode. Like, I know there's an argument where a lot of people who are maybe affluent from another venture first, or maybe affluent people who've done well outside of crypto first, they've got all that stock infrastructure already set up. And that's what is more natural to them if they're slightly older. Maybe if you're our age or older, you have that stock infra set up. And so you don't need to trade stocks on chain, and you just don't need to. But for a lot of people, I think, and I think this is underestimated. I think for a lot of people are making their money in this universe. That's the first time, or is they're making new wealth here. And to move it around and go other places is just a complete pain. And so being the place that houses all of those financial instruments is the place to be. And I think if they do that, well, I think it's exploding anyway, but I think if they do that, that's part of the thesis. One thing to counteract all of this, which I think is just worth sharing, when you think about like what can go wrong, what are the risk factors? I do think there's a bunch of legal stuff, which is a risk factor still. The way that they kind of came to market, they're not as decentralized as other things, and therefore there's been like some centralized decision making, which other centralized actors were not happy about because they did not. If you're centralized, you have to comply with certain things. If you say that you're decentralized, you don't have to. Hyperliquid seem to try to take the middle ground. I think there's arguments that have been made that that's not fair. It's not fair that you get to vampire all of our users if you are not going to comply with the centralized exchange requirements when you don't want to. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is that they're getting attacked. So they obviously had an attack when there was the guy who was short.
B, I think you cut out for me for the moment. Yeah, I'll give you a bit while you're trying to either come back here on Spaces. Yes, there was the attack. Wait, I'm seeing you up on Spaces. There was the attack on Hyperliquid. There was this one person who had a massive short position going on that ultimately he let himself. Yeah, I'm just finishing your line of thought with the short, where he let himself being liquidated, and Hyperliquid did have to take over that toxic position. And straight back to you, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, so I think that there's obviously that risk in the sense that there are people gunning for it, and then also even just yesterday, as part of the news, the Twitter account got hacked. So like these are the risk factors. I think they are definitely they've got a target on their back because of how well they're doing. So I think that all of these things is something to be aware about, and that's like part of the risk analysis. But in general, I can't think of anyone executing at the level that they're executing at. And so, you know, when we were talking weeks ago, maybe even a couple of months ago, about like clipping into Hyperliquid is better at 13 than at 30, you know, seems to be playing out quite nicely. Although, you know, the rest of the market is up as well. So, you know, when Bitcoin's going up, then everything else is going to go up. So to some extent, we're still being led by Bitcoin in some respects. So very, very good stuff there, I think. I just wanted to make, so much is spoken about hype, not enough is spoken about unit. And yeah, that's the key thing I think people in general are missing. So that's the one I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I think with hype, you have obviously this very like tight-knit community, and people who are outside of that just see hype and just see the ecosystem being built, but like not really aware of the key players. And we've been speaking about that, right? I mean, both of us have been invested in ETH for quite a while, and you just get attached to that ecosystem. And when you then first move over to something like Solana, whether it is to participate in DeFi or flip meme coins, it's just going to take you a while to understand what the entire ecosystem is actually doing and figuring out those opportunities. But if you just have this outside perspective, you will not really be aware of how it works from the inside, and you won't be aware of the follow-up and follow-on opportunities. So I do think that unit is something to not only like keep an eye on, but actually something that I want to focus myself on.
For sure. And just for people wondering, if you're still hearing this for the first time, or even if you have not heard it before, sorry, even if you had heard it before, the way to try to get exposure, should that be something you want to do, I mean, there aren't a million ways to do that. You just bridge, you can bridge spot ETH or Bitcoin over to Hyperliquid. Like there's a bridge that you can do that, and there's a small fee attached. So that's one of the ways they earn fees. And then you can just, you know, trade Bitcoin or ETH on Hyperliquid. Those are the two ways at the moment. All of that activity is generating revenue. Not all of it. I think half of it the protocol keeps, as in Hyperliquid keeps because you're trading on their platform, and half of it I think goes to Unit because they brought those assets onto the platform. So you need to double check the exact split or exactly how the revenue is kind of split up. But those are the two ways you do it. You kind of generate some volume and you bridge the stuff across, whatever you're comfortable with. So if you want to do that, that's what you would do. I just wanted to make that like crystal clear and give you some kind of concrete action if that is something you want to do. I will be doing stuff like that, and just trying to manage the risk and doing it in an amount which I'm happy to put over. A couple of Ledge, do you have anything else on this? Otherwise, I think there's even more, a couple of other bits before we get to the headlines.
No, happy for you to continue with some additional commentary on the snapshot.
So I think the only other one to add is like Infinex. Like this Infiniex Connect, it's like a full interface to manage apps from inside the Infinex wallet. It's really cool. Like I don't think we've seen something quite like that before. It's obviously trying to be a centralized exchange on chain, and I don't think we've seen before where you can like deposit a bunch of capital, and then with like, I don't know what other people's user experience is when they're navigating crypto, but the tabs on my the tabs on my computer are just like out of control. Like there's just so many open. If I open a position in a particular protocol, then I have to keep the tab open, basically. Like I've probably made a note of it somewhere, but just having the tab open makes me remember that I've got a certain amount of money in a particular protocol. Whereas I guess what Infinex is doing is saying, okay, well, you've got this is where, you know, your portfolio. Say, just as an example, you have 10 grand within Infinex. You can now, within the app, without having to open anything else, you can like tap on the Aave like button and take actions from within the interface. So, and then you will be able to track it from within the app. I just think that's a really cool feature. Yes, I'm an investor in it. I mean, I've invested a lot of things, but like, I think that is one of a cool thing. It's a cool thing to see. I definitely want to actually. They only announced this yesterday, so I do think that over a longer period of time, or even a short to medium period of time, it would probably be worth experimenting with that new product, trying out some of these new ways to deploy. I don't know, having some stable coins and chucking it in Aave via the Infinex app. If you want to be super smart, and I need to investigate this more to see what other integrations there are, you try to go for a 2-for-1, where it's yes, you're going to make a play for some kind of Infinex token. Potentially you're going to use Infinex, but then you're also going to go into a protocol that is also tokenless. So those are the kind of ways you can get 2-for-1 opportunities. I don't know if there are those available at the moment. I need to get into the app, but that announcement only happened yesterday, and they did that announcement at Token in Dubai. So just wanted to showcase that as well, because I think it's a good team. They raised, I think it was 70 mil in September last year. So they're super well funded to kind of build out this vision of building out the on-chain exchange and the alternative to Binance and all those other things. So found that super interesting. Just wanted to showcase that. I think it's a cool product. And that's that. Ledge, any commentary there? I don't know if you've played around on Infinex. That's definitely been more me so far. Anything else from you before we kind of get into the main stuff?
Yeah, when you said that you have a tab open for every single position that you have, I was wondering who does that. But apparently you're not alone, because Kusho in the comments is saying he's the same. It's a million tabs open, and Infinex new claim should be reducing infinite tabs. But in all seriousness, it does make a significant difference. We spoke about that on the show when it comes to just swapping on ETH and having to go to a 3-step process with approval, transaction preview, and transaction, and being able to do that in one step on Solana. And basically everything that is managing to save you clicks is extremely valuable. I know that from Rappi, for example, where this is the wallet that I'm using in the Ethereum ecosystem, where I still can see all of the DeFi protocols where I have money in. But for some of them, it's pretty straightforward. I can see I have a position in Aave. I click on that, and then I can manage that. But for others, I see I have a position in some sort of exotic DeFi protocol, and then I still need to figure out where on earth that withdrawal or deposit or whatever redeem button is that I'm looking for. Even more complicated if you have deposited in a V2 of a specific protocol, they've upgraded to V3, V4, and then you need to find the basically historical page that is still hosting the outdated version. So sometimes that can be so frustrating that I'm just giving up on that. And if there is a place, and I have not invested in Infinex, but if there is a place that allows me to save time and clicks on that, and for that it has to support a plethora of protocols, I do think saving users time and saving them unnecessary clicks is something that sounds very simple, but is extremely valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's worth checking out. Yeah, I think obviously there's a upside play there at the same time. Okay, that is that. I think we're going to run a little bit shorter today. We still want to do at least 10-15 minutes, but let's just get into the main headlines. We're going to do quick headlines on Circle and Ripple. It's pretty big news with Ripple trying to buy Circle. Then we'll touch on the movement stuff. A lot of drama, a lot of allegations. We'll just get you up to speed with it, because I think there is an important takeaway from it all. And then we want to just touch on risk. Housecoin hitting 100 mil. That's pretty significant. So what are we thinking about that, and what are the consequences? So Ledge, I'm going to pass over to you first to just get us up to speed with the Circle and Ripple stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There has been a report in Bloomberg that claims that Ripple had proposed a takeover of its rivaling stablecoin provider Circle. The figure is estimated to be anywhere between 4 and 5 billion, and Circle has rejected that as a bid that is too low. Ripple apparently still remains interested in Circle. It has not decided whether it wants to make another offer or not. That is according to people who are familiar with the issue, but for obvious reasons do not want to be identified. And a spokesperson for Circle, on the other hand, said, "We do not comment on market rumors." That's that on the info level. Basically, I think strategically, this is an interesting piece of news because Circle is working on its IPO. We have discussed what a potential valuation of that company could be. We have also discussed one of the bigger weaknesses for Circle, which is the dependency on Coinbase to distribute and how expensive that distribution is. So having someone come in and putting up a strong offer in this $4 to $5 billion range is a good news for Circle, even if they don't want to accept it and they think that's too low. That is a news that they want to see being circulated. On the other hand, Ripple also has a vested interest in this. Sorry, they do have their own stablecoin RLUSD, which they had launched last December. It's only quote unquote sitting at a market cap of 300 something mil, which is very low compared to Circle's almost $62 billion. But they, by submitting that offer, Ripple that is, also show that they are taking the stablecoin industry seriously. They're going for the second largest competitor in this industry, and they're putting up a sizable bid. So this is not a very uncommon strategy to have offers like this and then to have them being circulated in the media, being circulated in Bloomberg.
Okay. Thanks for that. Any bigger takeaways, do you think? Like, I mean, the various developments for Circle, when you're thinking about, I mean, maybe there just needs to be consolidation in this space, right? Like, in order for Circle and anyone else to compete with Tether, maybe they're just going to have to team up, right? Is that something that you're thinking this is?
I think from Ripple's perspective, yeah. I mean, we had reported that they, when was it? In April, last month, or in March, that they wanted to buy, or are in the process to buy, the prime brokerage Hidden Road for 1.25 billion. So Ripple is definitely on a acquisition spree. So the consolidating strategy is something we currently see play out from their perspective. Yeah.
Okay. Good stuff. So yeah, we just wanted to bring that news to you. Obviously, big news. Sounds like they're going to go it alone, at least for now. And yeah, because Tether is a monster. Talking to the Plasma guys yesterday, and just in general, obviously we've been following Plasma very, very closely. I think that is an absolute monster in the making, and is going to the extent that USDT is already so dominant. I think Plasma as the blockchain for USDT, maybe if that's the way to kind of think about it, is going to be huge. So I think others will need to respond quite meaningfully. So we'll keep an eye on that as usual. Let's get into the next headline before we discuss a bit more on the risk side and how we are thinking about the market. Movement Labs, in more controversy. There's kind of this scandal going around about secret contracts, shadow advisors, hidden middlemen. This is coming from the CoinDesk article reporting on it. They said Movement Labs is investigating whether it was misled into signing a market-making agreement that granted an obscure middleman control over 66 million Move tokens, triggering a $38 million sell-off after the token's debut. Internal contracts show that Rentec, a firm with no digital footprint, appearing on both sides of the deal, once as a Web3 port subsidiary and once as an agent of Movement Foundation, raising questions about self-dealing. There were kind of in the various correspondence which was leaked. There was like some journalist leaked a bunch of internal documents. There were foundation officials who initially flagged the Rentec deal as possibly the worst agreement they have ever seen, and experts warned that it created incentives to pump Move's price before dumping tokens onto retail investors. And there was these kind of communications that were revealed and that have now become public that kind of allude to this stuff. So now it appears to be the case that there's this rift within Move's top leadership. Executives, legal counsel, and advisors are all under scrutiny for their roles in facilitating the arrangement. One thing to note is that Rishi, the founder, came out yesterday to kind of make a statement. He said it's been a brutal few weeks.
lots of rumors circulating and internal drama. He wants to start clearing stuff up. He said mistakes were made. We trusted the wrong advisors, market makers, and folks going into a bear market. He said, I personally trusted opportunistic administrators who acted as shadow decision makers behind the decisions with their own financial motives. These same representatives are the ones who broker deals, run financial treasuries, make hires, and negotiate deals behind the scenes while letting others take the blame. He said, movement has deviated far from the dream I had, and it hurts me to see it like this. However, I'm still hopeful for the future of the ecosystem and helping our builders. He then, there's a lot of questions about insider stuff. Founders selling. He said, I've not personally OTC'd or sold anything. He said that any market maker decisions were approved and supported by the entire foundation team, and that there were bad parties involved that corrupted the process by representing both sides to profit, and the team is in the process of investigating. Okay, so look, I think there's probably more. There's like a whole full-on investigation to be done here. This was mostly dropped by someone called Sam Kessler. Let me see what his position is, to be honest. Deputy Managing Editor at CoinDesk. Okay, so that's why CoinDesk had the main article. So that's where I read from, the main summary article. And then he kind of dropped this thread where it has images of all of these, not interviews, emails, and other kind of core company documents that kind of back up the story. It looks like the story is legit in the sense that, Rishi even came out and said, like, look, this stuff is wrong. Not necessarily acknowledging every single point, but acknowledging that stuff has gone wrong. To me, the key takeaway from this for most people here as founders, entrepreneurial people in this space, traders, creators, whatever, even just reasonable participants in this space trying to make sense of everything and trying to better yourself in whatever way possible, is that there are so many games being played which are concealed from us routinely, and it is incredibly hard to make any kind of reasonable bet on some of these tokens if this kind of stuff is happening and you just have no idea and there is no transparency. So I know full well that this is a risky space and there are risks involved with all of the kind of decisions that we make. But I think this is the exact type of thing which makes people go, do you know what? I'm just going to buy Housecoin because Housecoin doesn't have a ceiling. And that is going up at the moment. And people know that at some point people are going to sell on top of them. But you already know that. Like when it happens is the game you're kind of playing. Whereas this, it's like you have to hear people talk to you about all these dreams they have, that there's this real product, that there's all this stuff, and some of that stuff might be true, right? I'm sure there's some proper stuff being built out, but the problem is that there's all kinds of games getting played behind the scenes, and it becomes very, very difficult to ascertain whether your buy is just going to be before some inside party is going to have a huge number of tokens unlocked to them, and it's just all going to get sold on top of your head. Especially when it's done in this kind of incredibly intransparent way. I mean, of course, everyone knows that there are investors who will eventually unlock, and then they will be able to sell their tokens. Like people know that part, and that part you might even be able to figure out if you go to certain websites. You can figure out what the terms of the deals are. You cannot figure out the terms of the deals if everyone's OTCing over and over again, and like different deals are being made OTC, and then you get extra amounts if you come in as a liquid fund and you say, well, I'm going to buy this on the open market, and then you're going to get this amount unlocked after 3 months, and then you're going to have like all these tokens to be able to sell in 3 months time. Like that's nowhere public. You don't know anything that's going on in that particular thing. And so as a person that's trying to participate in that market, like what's the point? Like, I don't know. I think that's really, really hard. And I completely sympathize why people go further down the risk curve then and say, do you know what? This looks pretty rigged. Not only is it rigged, and you can argue meme coins are rigged too, this is rigged in a way which is like the things you're telling me to my face that it's not rigged, and then it is rigged. Meme coins are not telling you to your face that they are. Well, actually, maybe they are sometimes. Sometimes all of this stuff is rigged, guys. That's if I'm just going to be on the depressed arc for just like 5 seconds, maybe it's all rigged to a different extent, and maybe this is just like the worst manifestation of that. So, Ledge, I'm going to stop there. I'm curious for your thoughts and reflections, and then maybe we want to give some people some thoughts on Housecoin.
I think the key takeaway is to be aware of the unknown unknowns. As you said, there's only so much stuff that you can know. You cannot really know what goes on the OTC market. You cannot really know how a token loan agreement looks like with a market maker. We spoke about that on the show. You don't know the contingencies. You don't know what price ranges they have been discussed. If the price hits this and that number, it trades within this and that range, and this is how the fee split and profit split looks like, etc. So there's only, and that is the weird thing, because we are acting in this transparent space. Blockchain is super open and accessible for everyone to read, but we've also built systems that allow to obfuscate a lot of activity. And as you said, yeah, you can see token unlocks, but what help is that if there's a big OTC market in the background, and then actually there's significant token loan agreements, for example, with the market maker, that can impact the price in a way more aggressive way than the potential unlocks that come in a couple of months or in half a year, whatever the time frame is. So summing it up, key takeaway, be aware that you cannot know everything about a project. There are unknown unknowns. There are risks that you cannot be certain of how they might shape out and who has what incentives. And that is how the game can be rigged against you in crypto.
Okay. I think that's helpful. Look, we don't have a huge amount of time today, so we want to cut just slightly earlier. I think that's a reasonable summary. You don't want to do a full-on investigation. You can obviously read more about that if you want. I'm sure more is going to come out too. Final take, Ledge. Housecoin's hit 100 mil. You tweeted earlier today that you bought your first meme coin in quite a while. Curious just to give your quick take on why you are entering back in now. There's not just Housecoin that's hit 100 mil. You've got Gork going to 40 mil today. You've got Troll. Okay, Troll's down 30% today, but that was another recent one that went above 30 mil too. So all of this stuff, there's a lot of activity, a lot of even more meme coin launch pads launching. So quick take here, and just what are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me it's the three things. On the one hand, we have existing meme coins coming back. We talked about virtuals yesterday. We talked about virtuals today. Totally AI agent market cap is up another 7% over the last 24 hours, 9.5 bill. That is now more than doubled up over the last 2 weeks. We have new memes, as you said, suddenly running. House on a pretty beautiful run, hit 115 mil. It's trading at 103 now. Also, Gork, Troll, and others that you have mentioned before, establishing themselves as the second factor. And then the third thing for me was also to see with this plethora of launchpads, including Radium's launchpads and other that came out, they've also seen significant trading volume. They've also seen 9-figure trading volume happening. So it clearly seems that, and this is the confirmation that I was waiting for, that this is like not a one mean phenomenon, that the market is bored and it's just pumping a single thing, but that there seems to be a broader interest that is flowing back into this more risk-on capital. And ultimately, that this cumulative interest is now in a very, very high, what is it then? Single, maybe even 2-digit billions over the last, no, it has to be 2-digit billions if just the AI agent market cap is up more than 5 bill over the last 2 weeks. So it is a broader move. And I wasn't in any rush to try to time the peak or bottom of that. It's just not something that I'm good at, but I was waiting for a couple of confirmation signals to see that there's some broader market interest to shift a bit more risk on. And I saw that confirmation that I needed. And hence I am now also back to gambling a bit on the meme side of things.
I like it. Okay. So you're back in that particular thing. I was DCAing Fartcoin just a little while ago, playing in and out. I think our sense has been activated sufficiently now. So I guess we're back in that mood. So We'll keep you up to date with all that stuff. We'll be sharing our thoughts as things go. As usual, we're just going to drop a few minutes earlier today because we got to get on the move as well ourselves. Got some meetings to attend, some events to attend out here at Token. We hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, we're live every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour live on X Spaces, X Video, YouTube, and then you can catch us on Apple and Spotify podcasts too, if that's where you prefer to catch up. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us. Take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.